Hype it up,
We love you.
everybody.
We love you, Marcel.
Thanks, a lot of love to you as well. So, hype it up, everybody. Hype it up, everybody. Life Health Skill Podcast. We are leveling up your health skill. I'm Marcel, I'm your host. Welcome in. It's my pleasure to introduce to you today Jodi. She's a friend, she's a mother, she's a fellow yoga teacher, and a women's circle creator. And so, with my pleasure, welcome with love, Jodi Behan from Canada. Woohoo! Hype
Yay!
it up.
Yay! Thanks, Marcel. I'm so happy to be here. This is my first ever interview about women's circles. And
Great.
it's a topic I'm super passionate about. So I am happy to share my journey and what I love about it.
So
Okay.
so glad to have you. And today is the first time for me doing this right now. So we will be tuning in a little bit into our body before we start to talk about everything. We're just coming to a great sit right now. Exactly.
Yay.
Also do your thing a little bit. If you like to bring the hands together, bring the hands together. And just for a minute, everybody also in the chat, everybody listening right now, the podcast, maybe close your eyes, connect to your feet, feel how the feet are connected to the floor, and tune in to your body. Take a deep breath in, into the belly, into the chest. Welcoming to whatever comes up during this podcast, being open to that. Realizing that there are two bodies talking with each other right now and many bodies listening. And also the other bodies that are listening, you can ask questions later on. Very welcome to do that. Check in with how you're feeling. And as soon as you're ready, slowly open your eyes again. And you're ready. Great. Good. So, thank you for joining in this little experiment. This was the first time of as little centering practice before. Thank you for
I
joining in,
love that.
Jodi. You loved that? That's amazing. Thank you. So, let's start. Let's get to know you a little better, Jodi. Can you tell us about your journey and how your journey is connected to the masculinity and the femininity?
Oh, that's a loaded question, Marcel. But a good one, of course. All questions are good. So, I would say I've been on the spiritual journey for as long as I can remember. Definitely being a very sensitive person, and being very curious about there being something more. And when I was younger, I had such a fear of death that I would freak out at nighttime at bedtime when I was like a young teenager, let's say, maybe even younger, but it carried on into my adulthood. So whenever I pondered life and death, I would have this like jolt in my body, like, oh my God, I'm going to die one day. I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be this person that I know. And I'm going to go into the unknown. And that was so scary for me. It would freak me out. And aside from that, yeah, just so much curiosity and seeking. And I felt like I was a little bit of an oddball, like, the sheep of the family, the sheep everywhere I went. And I also had a lot of behavioral issues. And that came from the challenges of my childhood, being one of 5 kids and really wanting to be heard. I was the fourth, and I had 3 older sisters. And our household was really busy, and I just wanted attention. And so that carried out into the other aspects of my life of look at me, I'm special. And that ended up becoming, how can I make myself feel special? And I chose like performing arts, where I could be seen and perform and entertain. Um, and then as I got older, like as I was 18, I just started to realize that I was feeling empty in my interactions with other people. I would leave my interactions and feel this emptiness.
Mhm.
And then I started to get in touch with what that was. And I was like, oh, I didn't make that person feel good. Or I didn't ask them questions about how they're doing. And I know they're going through something.
Yeah.
Um, or I just talk about myself a
Yeah.
lot. And that just left me feeling empty because there wasn't really a heart connection. And then I started practicing yoga and I was doing my acting, and yoga taught me so much, and it helped me connect with the deeper person that I am, my true essence.
Yeah.
So that, and then I started following those breadcrumbs. But at the same time, I was making choices that were sabotaging me in a way, that were impulsive. And I got pregnant at 24 and became a mom. And then I gave up yoga for a time, and I devoted all my life to my raising my kids when they were younger. They're now 8
Mhm.
and 11, two boys.
Cool.
And making that impulsive choice came with some implications, some consequences. And how I express it is that when my son Joseph was born, my first, it was like ego my ego meeting like the deepest love, that unconditional love for my child.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't enough space for both
Yeah.
in child rearing. So I was struggling with, I wanted to give him everything. I wanted to do the co-sleeping. I wanted to do the nursing on demand. But then I had my whole ego structure, which was got to keep busy, got to keep doing. We're going to go to play dates. We're going to go to the library. We're going to go to gym class. We're going to go to music classes. And it was go, go, go.
Yeah.
And I couldn't just sit on the living room floor with my toddler and play. There was so much anxiety, and that was the drivenness that I grew up with. So we all have different ego structures, I believe, based on the attitudes and beliefs of the way we're raised. So that's
Mhm.
18 years of imprinting that I had to somehow figure out and unlearn, because it was bringing me more pain. It was bringing me pain in my life. And I always say, we're built for pleasure, not pain.
Yeah.
And so that pain ended up translating into being very reactive with my child and a little bit aggressive at times, where I would grab him, or I would maybe smack him or something, and I don't like to go back to that period of my time, because I became sleep deprived, because I wanted to give him that co-sleeping, but then I wouldn't rest during the day.
Yeah.
And so by the time he was about a year and a half, that's when my spiritual teacher came into my life, because I needed it.
Yeah.
I was like a walking zombie, and I needed to heal. I needed to then heal my chemistry, but then heal what caused me to get to that place.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. And
So,
so then
mhm.
that was the beginning of like my deep healing work, working with native energies and healing those deep grooves and tapes.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And then the journey continued on. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited that you're here, Jodi, together with me. And I wanted to say that again right now. It's so beautiful to connect again to somebody else through this podcast that I'm creating, and asking really, really deep questions. And thank you for sharing your honest and being honest with us today, sharing yourself here.
Thank
So,
you.
before we go any deeper, uh,
Mhm.
can you define femininity or divine femininity and divine masculinity in your words?
So you sent me all these questions to ponder, and I
Ah,
actually didn't
don't worry.
visit that. I
Yeah,
just trust that whatever comes out
definitely.
is my truth.
Yeah,
Um,
authenticity and honesty. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
yeah. So the feminine, and I'll just speak from the divine feminine, for me is about grace. It's about softness. It's about unconditional love. It's a open and receptive energy. It is an energy that flows and trusts the journey.
Hmm.
It's an energy that's deeply connected with the spiritual. It's a nurturing energy, gentle. Yeah, I would say that for me are the qualities of the divine feminine.
Exactly. Yeah. Good.
Mhm. And wisdom, wise.
Yeah.
If I move up all the chakras, there's different qualities for every chakra that is an expression of the feminine,
Yeah.
just
Now,
like the masculine.
yeah. Would you like to speak a little bit more about the masculine before we head into deeper questions about the feminine? Of course, we're talking about the feminine, but also
Yeah,
incorporate the masculine a little.
absolutely. So, yeah, we all have the feminine and the masculine qualities within us. I feel personally that I relate more to the feminine being in this archetypal energy of being a woman. But the masculine qualities, divine masculine qualities that I connect with would be stability,
Mhm.
inner strength, boundaries,
Mhm.
trust. Um, yeah, just to name a few.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so if I could name some from our yoga training, steadfast, another one. Yeah. Basically like strength and rootedness and a balance
Good.
of just that protection. It's a protective energy as well.
Yeah, good.
Mm.
So thank you for sharing your view with us right now and sharing the qualities you are seeing and experiencing. Um,
Mm.
Now let's talk about a little bit more context. Like, what are some problems that come up when we talk about femininity? Do you know what I mean with this question?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I would say we don't talk a lot about femininity
Hmm.
in our culture. I think we talk a lot about sex and beauty and careers and money.
Yeah, it's kind of
Honestly,
it's kind of like melted down to some qualities, kind of like, but not the whole thing, right?
absolutely, for sure. And I feel in our Western culture, there is a lot of masculine energy that the whole collective has taken on.
Hmm.
And I think things kind of became out of balance when women were wanting to exert their own choices and rights. And so then they were making choices to say, we can do this just as good as the men can do it. And we deserve an option to have the same jobs as men. And as well, right now, as we fight for being paid the same amount as men. So I think there's definitely this big masculine quality. And I think women attached to that because I think we were getting tired of feeling boxed in by, stay in the kitchen and cook and look pretty and shut up.
Hmm.
So, in my experience, and so in my understanding of in my culture, and so I think both of those come from a lack of knowing our true essence and a lack of balance. And so, for me personally, I have felt more connected to the masculine throughout my life. My dad's energy was really intense in our household, and that was sort of our meter for love was, you know, act funny, act smart. We were competitive with each other as sisters. And so these are qualities of like the wounded masculine, that competitiveness
Yeah.
and a lot of ego. And I was very much into like athletics and being strong and tough, and there wasn't a lot of soft feminine qualities. The feminine, example that I had of my mom was kind of be a lady and you know look pretty kind of thing. And so yeah, for myself, I I think I really felt limited in this very masculine expression of go, 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 got to keep up with everyone else. And it's really interesting. There's a book, I think it's called something like She Flows. I'm going to have to look up the name of it for you. But there's a beautiful example
Hmm.
of the feminine and the masculine energy.
Hmm.
And they relate it to our physiology. And so the energy of the sperm is to race to the egg. And that's sort of like the energy of like that masculine of like, that healthy competition, but that like racing and productivity.
Yeah.
And the egg just sits there and is receptive.
Yeah.
And so in our culture, I feel like we've become out of balance with this pace of life rather than a little more trust and flow.
Yeah. I like
And,
that.
mhm. And I think a large proponent for that happening has to do with our relationship to sexuality and what religion has done to that. So, yeah, anyway, that's another tangent. But yeah, I think that we need to really listen to the pleasure in our bodies
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Good.
let that be our guide.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. I like that view right now. Let's go a little bit on here right now. Um, I wanted to ask you, like, does being a mother help you to connect to your divine feminine or divine femininity?
Absolutely. Absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah, and when you become a mother, you really take on these mothering qualities that are so feminine, which is nurturing and caring, um, which I think are just very feminine, to take care of your child, to hold your child, and
Hmm.
that deep bond. And it makes you so connected to your community and the greater webs that stretch out to the earth, to the whole global community and our deepest concerns. So I want to feed my baby
Hmm.
or my child the best food. So that makes me concerned about the quality of my food. And then it also makes me concerned that my other women in my community can feed their children well as well.
Hmm.
And we just become really tuned in to the environment that our children are being raised in.
Hmm. And
Hmm.
you're connecting to each other in one way, right? Women connect to each other.
Absolutely. That just feels so natural to
Yeah.
raise your children with other women,
Yeah.
because when you have babies and young children, you still want to have conversations as women,
Yeah. Okay.
about your life and about the challenges of being a mom or about your relationships with your husbands.
Yeah.
So it's a deep connection, and that sisterhood has been around since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
Women come together.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
It's clear. Good. Let's go on with another question. Does having a husband that is connected to masculinity help in your ability to connect and engage with femininity?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll just share something like juicy.
Sure.
Even in our intimacy, I he makes me feel like a goddess, and he makes me feel yeah, feel so beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and the way he admires my body and my female form as well. And and yeah, I would say I do feel protected by him
Yeah.
because he is stronger than me. He's bigger than me. And when he's not here, well, I'm feeling much more secure now. But when my kids were younger, when he wasn't around, I felt a little bit more nervous
Yeah.
being on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would
Complete.
say those qualities definitely help me feel more connected to my femininity as well. I just feel like we are very different, just by him being a man and the way he thinks and approaches life, and my being a woman, just the things that I need and the way that I approach life are very different.
Yeah. Good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
how is it to raise like two sons? I wonder, like all this masculine energy, maybe? I don't know if they have that developed already, but how is it? Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. It became a subject of interest for me, I would say, a few years ago. As my boys were getting older, I was like, okay, do I really understand them and how they think and what their needs are? And I never want to believe in these categories of, girls play with this stuff and girls like these colors
Yeah.
and boys are this way. I never really bought into that. I just I give them, the things that I like, and I share myself, and I see the things that they like and the things that they need, a lot of activity. And I don't have daughters to compare to it. But yeah, I definitely started looking into what it means to raise boys.
Yeah.
And I think in our culture, boys are really misunderstood, especially in the school environment. I think with the testosterone surges that they have in their body, they really need to move. And those come in waves. It starts at a really young age. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 where they get their first wave of testosterone, and they want to whack things and bang things and climb things like aggressively.
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like having boys in in my house. I'll speak for myself. They're boys of different nature for sure. My sister has a son who's a little bit more tepid and calm. So she relates to him as Ferdinand the Bull. So again, not categorizing, but just observing our own children and noticing what they need. And yeah, I think through some healing work I've done in the past, healers have basically said to me, wow, there's a lot of masculine energy around you. I'm like, yes, there is. Thank you. I didn't even realize it, but like that helps me understand how I feel as the only woman in the house, and what I need is
Yeah.
totally different than two boys and a man. And so it's interesting that I've found these women's circles that have fulfilled me so deeply in my journey.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. Good. Yeah. Before we come to the women's circles, we're going there. Don't worry about it. We're getting there. I wonder, could you imagine raising a daughter? And if you can imagine that, what would that be like for you?
Hmm. We've thought about having another one, but my husband would have to reverse his vasectomy.
Yeah.
So that's a big conversation. And our guys are already 8 and 11. But yeah, I have thought a lot about having a daughter and what that would be like to share that bond. I have 3 nieces, which I adore: Olivia, Nev, and Indigo. And they're just like such magical beings. And they feel like daughters to me in a way. And it's interesting when they come over, there's a different energy altogether. They sit at the island and they want to hear the conversation between the mums, which is really interesting that I've observed. And they also, they can sit quietly and just do like, maybe coloring or helping with the cooking. And, they'll wait for the instructions about putting the flour in without, me being like, I'm anxious, which is sometimes how I feel when I bake with one of my kids. I'm just like, stop, wait, I will give you the instructions. And so, yeah, there's a totally different energy. And I was going to share another sweet thing that came to mind.
Sure.
My one girlfriend came over with her daughter, and I had an, I had my niece over as well. And somehow we ended up in my bedroom with the door closed, looking at all my essential oils, looking at all my precious stones. And then, then we started picking oracle cards, and we organically just created a little circle. It was so beautiful. But then outside my bedroom door was like a Nerf battle going on. And we were slightly under attack. But it's just so funny. Oh, another thing with girls is that when they come over, if someone's hurt, they are the first to report it, and they are the first one to get a Band-Aid and to help, like little nurses or like little mothers. And again, that's not a rule of thumb. My other girlfriend who has a daughter, she came over once. I said, oh, do you want to come see the little baby that's here or something like that? And she was like, nope, I just want a house tour. It was hilarious. She was like, I have babies. So it's not a rule of thumb, but I'm just sharing my experience with
Yeah.
the little women in my life
Great.
and their energy.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Let's go into the women's circles right now. Can you tell us more about your journey into creating women's circles?
So it started when I lived in New York. I felt there was so much separation between women in their little households and their little nuclear families. And it felt like there needed to be more togetherness and more sharing. And I had been invited to a full moon circle when I lived in Nashville, Tennessee previously, but I didn't end up going. But it planted a seed in my head. And so when I was in New York, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a full moon ceremony. I'm going to look it up online. I'm going to figure out the template, what it looks like. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Probably because I was needing it myself, feeling isolated at night. My husband was traveling with work, and it felt lonely. And so, yeah, that's how it began. They were just kind of like hodgepodgey circles that I just tried to figure out. We did face masks. We did some deep sharing. We did some journaling. And that was the big... Pardon?
Sorry, what are these hodgepodges?
Oh, hodgepodgey. Like, it wasn't perfect. I just kind of put it together as best I could.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and it was beautiful. Like, it's so interesting. Whenever I slightly mention at the playground or at the supermarket that I do full moon circles with women, women are like, sorry, what? Tell me more. Tell me more. I want to know more. I'm intrigued. It's just such a natural thing, a desire of women, I believe. And then when I moved to Switzerland again, I just felt like there was so much separation. And yes, women can get together. They can go to a sporting event. They can go out dancing. And it's how often it's, drinking is involved, alcohol. And it's not really the place for deep conversation.
Yeah.
You're not going to talk about your troubles with your husband or your troubles with parenting when you are at a sporting event or drinking and dancing. And so where do women come together for that real, authentic connection? It's really difficult when you have kids around because they interrupt all the time.
Yeah.
And when you are just in this routine of keeping their schedule, feeding them, you don't really have that time with other women. So then in Switzerland, again, I started creating them. I got together with a woman who had a children's art studio, and I said, do you want to do full moon circles with me? And you could do the creative aspect, and we'd have that beautiful space. And she was like, yes, I've wanted to do this for so long. It's so funny you reached out to me. And she would create the most beautiful altars. And we'd brainstorm on the theme of the full moon gathering. And I usually would connect with the astrological theme. So, what people might be feeling, so that it was relevant
Hmm.
and really like hit the nail on the hammer on the nail, or whatever the expression
Hmm.
is,
Yeah.
whatever. And and then we would brainstorm, and she would come up with a creative craft for us to do together.
Oh,
So the
cool.
beginning part, we were
Y-
in circle, sharing some ritual, some journaling, and then we would create something and then close the circle. And now I'm back in Canada, and as I came back, there was a woman doing, a friend of mine doing new moon circles. And I'm like, great. I'm just going to receive. I'm just going to go to her circles and focus on my yoga teaching.
mhm.
And then I just felt a yearning again to gather with the full moon. So hers were new moon circles. You can gather with both. Historically, women have gathered with the new moon because that's when they're bleeding and on their
Mhm.
menses together. For me, the full moon is powerful because it stirs up deep, energetic things going on. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's when the wolves are howling. It's when the tides are rising, and it affects people. You hear more ambulances. Um, People are out of sorts a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I like gathering in a circle for women to just be like, blah, and just release and be heard. I think it's so important.
Good. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about it, even more. So, what does having a women circles do for women from your perspective? So, where does it help in their day to day life? What's the
Mm.
outcome of it? So let's say, what's the outcome of it? Not that you expect anything out of it, not at all, but what could be some possible outcomes of it?
That's a really good question because I usually just focus so much on the experience itself
Yeah. Okay.
that I forget to connect more with how people are feeling after the moon circle. I'm just sort of like, okay, here it is, and then we say goodbye.
That's great.
Am I for myself too? Like I carve out this special time for myself. It becomes a ritual for myself, and there's a lot of stress involved, but then when I'm in the circle, it's juicy and it's enjoyable and it's
Yeah.
transformative. Um but at the same time, after the circle is done, I feel like I snap back into my life as a mom and a wife and taking care of my house and my dog,
Yeah.
and I'm not yoga teaching right now, I'm homeschooling.
Yeah.
So that's a big job.
Good.
And I think what I'm working on is learning how to integrate and bring that magic and that power of that circle into my regular life.
Hmm.
So so when I get together in my circles, we don't know what's going to happen in a way,
Yeah.
but sometimes it reveals a lot
Hmm.
to myself and other women. There's something about, just as I am right now, there's something about just speaking your truth
Yeah.
and not knowing what's going to come out next and not having control or fear. So there's a safe space, but so much becomes revealed as others are holding space for you and you're allowed to express yourself. And a lot of the times, which is really interesting, women are able to figure out what they need,
Hmm.
or they're able to figure out a solution to something they're challenged by, just by, as we go around the circle, share. And I make a joke sometimes. I'll say, what's a working ya? What's a learning ya? It's an old Quaker expression. It's a Christian religious based question, but the Quakers were a little bit different. They did like shaking and meditation, and they still do these practices. So I picture like an old man on a stoop. What's a working ya and what's a learning ya? And we'll go around the circle and we hold space for each woman to share.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's a really powerful thing, especially if we need to work on our truth and our voice and our expression,
Yeah.
which for women has been shut down for, as for such a long time. Let's say, I don't know how many hundreds of years now, this enculturation of silencing women and their power. The Inquisition, a woman is healing her people in her community and it's witchcraft.
Yeah.
No, she's a wise healer. And so, there's that. There's women who've got their necks cut off and being silenced in different ways and oppressed.
Yeah.
And so when we're in this circle, to express your voice is really emotional. Some women just start crying.
Yeah.
Just to speak and to be heard and to feel safe in that place.
Great. Good.
So I think they take, to answer your question short form, I think they take a lot from it, and it's up to them how much they want to work through in our circles.
I love that.
They can share as much as they want. And then there's different rituals where they can explore themselves and be willing. I'll speak for myself on many women's circles I've been to, with the intention of spiritual growth. When I go into them, I come out cracked open, a little bit more open, a little bit more sensual, a little bit more powerful. All these sorts of qualities come out when we start to look within and do some of this work, these rituals, these practices.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for sharing. Before we go any further, we're coming a little bit out of it, out of women's circles again, and let's talk about a little bit of wording right now. So let's take a step back right now, relax, breathe deep, and let's talk about wounded masculinity, wounded femininity, or as I prefer to say it, it's me, right? I like to say it like toxic femininity or toxic masculinity. And we discussed a little bit prior to it that you prefer like the term wounded. Could you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think we did touch on it a little bit before, and it's all been kind of weaved in, just about the suppression of women. And sort of like the feminist movement we talked about as well was about trying to find balance. And so for me, the wounded feminine, and I say wounded instead of toxic, because I believe we all have these beautiful hearts. And the reason I know that is because when I look at children, I know we all started there. We were all children, and we all have these beautiful hearts, unconditionally loving hearts. And that's who we are as adults as well. And so for me, the wounded feminine occurs based on life experiences and your upbringing. If there's a lot of trauma, that affects your nature. And these ego qualities, these ego mechanisms are developed for a reason. They're developed to protect the heart. They're developed to feel some sort of connection. So I'll share personally, like for me, I was sharing, I was looking for attention. I was looking for love. So for me, for my version of connecting with love was I had to be funny, I had to sound smart, and I had to do athletics and be good.
Mhm.
That's how I got my dad's attention.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do as a child to get
Crazy.
his unconditional love. And it
Yeah.
wasn't unconditional. These were the conditions. He didn't just accept me for who I was. I only got his attention when I was funny, sounded smart, like a smartass, mostly, and when I did athletics.
Yeah.
And I can remember from a young age just reading a book on the couch and him saying, Jode, have you been outside yet? Have you gotten your exercise? And I had that anxiety all the time that I had to be achieving.
Yeah.
And not academically.
Yeah.
Everyone has different ego structures that develop based on their parents. It wasn't about academics, it was about athletics.
Hmm.
And so, based on, I think, our childhood, being raised by our parents, we look up to them as if they're gods when we're children. And we have such unconditional love and acceptance of them, but we don't get the same treatment. And so, children are gifts in that sense. They're just perfect, they're pure energy. And we put our attitudes and energy onto them.
Hmm.
And then they have to learn how to navigate those energies.
Yeah.
And of course, there's like the environment that a child grows up in, in like a war-torn country. That's going to be a trauma. And there's other kinds of traumas as well. But I think the ones that make the biggest imprint are our relationships, the ones we grow up with. And that will either make you fill you up and give you pleasure and make you feel good and so much love and acceptance and joy and
Hmm.
fun in your household. And if you make a mistake, that's okay, because it's their job to teach you and guide you, and they'll usher you along and say, hey, don't worry, everybody spills, let's clean it up. And so that, I think, is the relationship that needs to be healed.
Yeah.
How we are with our children, and that's where the woundedness comes into play,
Yeah.
I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I
Yay.
understand it a little better now, right now, why you're saying wounded. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good. Dear friends in the chat right now, so dear viewers, dear listeners, you can ask Jodi and me, of course, some questions right now. We give some space right now. In the meantime, I have some additional questions to fill also like the time a little bit until some questions come up.
I have something to share too.
Sure. Please go ahead, Jodi.
So I didn't have this planned, but for this call and this sacred topic for me, I created an altar. So I just wanted to share it with everybody.
Sure, please.
So not only did I adorn myself with a beautiful kimono, feeling kind of sexy and beautiful, because as a woman, we like things that are beautiful and we like to adorn ourselves. And so if we take the ego out of it, it's beautiful. It's beauty. So I adorned myself. I like to spray myself with
Yeah.
rose water.
Awesome.
It smells so good. And then here is my little altar that I've made
Wow.
for today.
Wow, that's amazing, Jodi.
Yeah. So, candles, other things that represent the spiritual journey, the divine feminine. I've got my feathers. I've got, some shells representing just sort of this spiral of life, the journey that we're on. We're all just learning and unfolding continuously. Some crystals. I really love butterflies. A rose quartz, which represents the heart and love. I've got dried roses from previous circles. I have a nature smudge bundle I made at a women's retreat that I went on. And some more. And then here are my oracle cards. And this
Yeah.
is my favorite Divine Feminine Oracle deck. I have another amazing Oracle deck, which I can
Wow.
share too. These are my, can you see?
Yeah, we can see. We can see.
Okay, great. This is a favorite book of mine, Women Runes.
Cool.
So the language is really beautiful and evocative about just the feminine energy and gathering with women. So the dancing women, rune of celebration, community, shared power, solidarity. There need not already be a path. Walking together, we create one. And so I just reach into here and I'll just pick myself a rune. And that's sort of like the image. And I made these runes in Switzerland at one of my circles.
Yeah.
And then I'll read about it in my book. And then I wanted to share this book as well. This book is really, really powerful. This is a rite of passage, rite of initiation book. Women Who Run with Wolves. It talks about a lot of archetypal energy and how we can shift out of archetypes that aren't serving us. For example, one being the too good mother. What does that mean? A woman that just sacrifices herself for others, for her family, and how that's unhealthy. So
Okay.
learning to find her meet her own needs. You know, we're not here to sacrifice our lives for our family. We're here to be a family and be a woman as well. The Sophia Code is another powerful rite of passage, rite of initiation as well. Um, the Sophia energy. So this is like the goddess that is above us all. She is the matrix for all creative life. And this energy is now coming back on the earth, this goddess energy, which came before the God energy. The goddess energy is very connected to earth, um, earth-based beliefs. The earth is a mother energy, and then all the different archetypal energies. So Isis is in this book. I really am connecting with Isis right now and her power and how she guided her people in Egypt with so much love, and they lived with so much abundance. So Isis is just a beautiful, beautiful energy. And she really was connected with tantric, sacred sexuality, and the power of that pleasure that later became, because of religion, became vilified. You know, sex was wrong or naughty or bad. Actually, it's powerful. That's what it is. Are there
Great.
some questions?
Yeah, there are many questions, Jodi. If your parents are still with you, so you're around your parents, how do they see your perception on masculinity and femininity?
I think they're a little bit confused. They don't really understand it. You know, I've done so much work on myself since I was a child in their home, and yeah, I think it's hard for them to really understand and connect with. Um, I've wanted to have my mom at more circles, but she never really seems intrigued by them
Yeah.
or interested. And I think it's because she's not comfortable with being with other women and speaking her truth. So I have just learned to love and accept them where they're at, and know that, yeah, those are just really big blocks for them. And the biggest lesson I've learned is that you can't push other people on their journey, because we don't know the depth of their, you know, their universe, their journey, and the pain that they have suffered.
Yeah.
And when you start to do this work, it's almost like opening up Pandora's box. And
Yeah.
some people are not ready, and you don't want to give people pain. So I just hold this sacred within myself, and the people that are interested, they come to it. And when I get together with them at Thanksgiving and Christmas, I just stay rooted in who I am, and I speak my truth, and I have no attachment anymore to their thoughts and feelings because I see where they're at and I see their struggles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Thank you for sharing. This was a
Mm-hmm.
question from your cup of yoga. Thank you so much for that question. Let's go on to Ellie Sunflower's question. How did you overcome your father's powerfully masculine impact on you?
That's a great question. Um, Not easily. I'll be honest about that. So when Ken came into my life, my spiritual healer, that's a lot of the work we did. There was a lot of energy work around my anger, around my rage, around my attitudes and beliefs. Like I had such awful attitudes towards people, so many judgments. And they were all based on the things, the phrases my dad would use.
Yeah.
Everybody's an idiot, everyone's stupid. And all that judgmental energy that I had to shift out of, as well as complete egocentric egomaniaism. It was like when my dad came in the house, we had to be ready for his energy. If he wanted us to get in the car and drive up north to go skiing, we had to be ready to get everything together, and he could come in really angry. And yeah, and so I had to do a lot of spiritual healing. I had to work through as well my relationships to men in general and how I related to men.
Yeah.
So because I had anger towards men,
Yeah.
I didn't have a healthy relationship towards men. So I would say to heal those things, first is to become aware of the negative things that your qualities that your dad has that you're probably waking up to, it sounds like. Becoming aware of them and then realizing those aren't yours to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
So separating that energy. Be like, no, I don't have those same values and beliefs. Because those negative beliefs and judgments I had towards people bit me in the ass again and again. So the next time you get bit in the ass, look at it and ask yourself, what attitude or belief did I have here that caused me that pain of getting in shit? And then so you have to start to look at it and break it down.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I think about my girlfriend whose dad used to tell her, you're not smart, you're not that pretty, you got to use what's between your legs. The amount of time she comes over and if we talk about some deep stuff,
Yeah.
she brings that up. It's right there as like a seed, and she needs to release that story now and make up a new narrative.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to break these patterns.
Yeah.
I would say if you find a spiritual healer, great. If you can find women's circles to move through that shit that you've been carrying, great. Mm-hmm. Another thing is if you have a healthy relationship with a partner, you can use libidinal energy, sexual energy to move through chakras. So that's a really interesting thing to explore.
Good.
It's free. Intimacy is free. And if you have a respectful, loving relationship, or you want to work at it being more loving, which I am working on,
Mm-hmm.
it's about getting into the pleasure with another person. So I've gone on another tangent, but libidinal energy is the second most powerful energy on the planet. The first most powerful energy on the planet, can anyone guess? What is the most powerful energy on the planet?
Love. Love. Love.
Love. Ding, ding,
All
ding,
you need
love.
is love.
And how do we get into this expression of love? How do we get into all that pleasure of being the love of who we are?
Yeah.
The joy, the peace, the truth. These are the qualities of love. And when we're in conflict and we're in pain, then we know we're in the ego somewhere. We're trapped somewhere, and we need to connect with that love and heal.
Wonderful.
And so if you use that second strongest energy, libidinal energy, then that can help you move into love. Because
Great.
what are you doing with a partner? You're giving your partner pleasure.
Okay.
The greatest pleasure is the pleasure you give another.
Yeah.
So rather than masturbating with your partner, give your partner pleasure. And then he can focus on giving you pleasure.
Yeah.
And then, oh my gosh, you're one, almost like one moving together. Your pleasure is his pleasure is your pleasure. And that is a perfect microcosm for life. We are all
Wonderful.
built for pleasure.
Yeah.
And so as the energy builds, you can stop the energy, let it go down, calm yourselves down. Don't just jack off, just don't orgasm. Build the energy again and let it come up, 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 up. Kundalini energy all the way up. So you're like, oh, and it goes through the crown of your head. And I would love to say that I have had that experience. My husband has it through the crown, and his whole disposition changes. He has like heat in his face, and his chest is big, and he's just like totally, it's a meditation. He's totally like shifted energy. And that is really powerful. So that came from a small question.
Yeah, that's all right. Thank you for sharing,
But I want to
Jodi.
share. There's so many juicy things to share.
Thank you for being so honest. So, next question is from Carl Hogg. Jodi, have you read Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur? Do you know that book?
Yeah, I was actually gifted to it from a doula client, birth client that I had.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't know. I think I need to spend more time with it. I don't know if I connected with it fully, personally.
Okay.
But I know a lot of people love the poetry in the book.
Okay.
I just don't know if I am such a poetry buff.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for your view there. Thank you for your honesty. Okay. You just said something about Isis and her naughtiness, which is actually power, if I heard correctly. Could you elaborate on that? That's the question.
So I'm just getting to know Isis.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, she did walk this planet. The reason why we hadn't heard about her much until now is because her story was an oral tradition that was passed on. And then the patriarch really took hold in Egypt. But the story is that she and her husband led the people by creating so much love and community, that there was so much abundance in people's hearts. They ate well, and there was just this oneness, this supportive energy that they created within their community.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would love if I could just like pick her card right here. She's in my Divine Feminine deck. She talks about sexual energy being sacred. And so I think she shared tantric practices with people.
Jodi, we are finishing this up right here, right now. I wanted to ask you one more thing, or two more things, actually, two more. With all what we have learned right now, with what we have discussed, how can one be a better person, no matter if it's a man or a woman? How can one be a better person?
Listen to what you're longing for.
Yeah. Good.
Listen to what you're desiring and seeking. Explore, like, seek out what you want,
Yeah,
because we are the ones creating our experiences.
great. Thank you so much, Jodi.
So yeah, I'll just say I was longing to connect with the feminine energy.
Thank you so much. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I was longing to connect with you. You're such You're such a beautiful person. Thank you so much for sharing yourself today. And we have one more question coming up to you. How can people connect with you? And I have like this thought: are you going to do like these women circles maybe in one time in your life, maybe online, to invite people like online to your women circles, or is that out of the question?
Yeah, for me, the energy is really about being in person with
Yeah,
other women.
yeah,
I've tried the online stuff myself personally with people hosting those circles,
yeah,
and it's just not this, it's not the same.
yeah. Good.
So if you can't find a circle in your area, then create one.
Yeah, great
It's
advice.
really rather simple. Yeah.
Good. Thank you so much for being here. Please,
Oh,
everybody, please, everybody, you can connect with Jodi via Instagram with BN Jodi. And thank you so much for all the questions, all the beautiful questions you have asked. If you have any further questions, come into the Discord. This was Health Skill Podcast. It's coming weekly at you at the moment, and we have a wonderful other podcast coming up next week together with a good friend of mine, Martin Graf, who's creating men's circles, and we're talking with him next week, and we're asking him a lot of question about masculinity again and about men's circles as well. And he's from Switzerland, and I'm excited already to have this talk with him. So tune in live at www.moment.yoga/Twitch, available on all major podcast platforms and on YouTube. This was Health Skill Podcast Live. We are leveling up your health skill.